Brody, we had a real, live, actual sports thing
We did.
happen.
A parent of a toddler. You obviously cannot watch anything that Quentin Tarantino makes.
The Arizona Wildcats football program is the only Pac-12 program to not have somebody drafted.
There are just some ugly babies out there. Let's just be honest.
Welcome to the Brody and Mo In-Law Show, where we commiserate about Arizona sports, collaborate on being dads to daughters, and conversate about the pressing matters of today. Brody, our rabid, voracious listener base probably noticed that we didn't record last week, and that was on me. I want to apologize to the thousands and thousands of people out there who listen to us all the time. I just want to say I'm sorry. Feeling a little under the weather. I think I had temporary COVID. But the good thing was...
That was the quickest COVID I've ever seen.
It was incredibly
You had
quick.
none of the symptoms, but that's fine.
Superhuman recovery powers. It's just part of my fantastic genetics, I think. You know how Shakespeare was able to write King Lear and a bunch of his more famous plays while he himself was in quarantine?
I heard about that.
Yeah, I used the time off to come up with what I think are some real world-changing ideas, and I kind of want to. I just wrote them down.
Lay it on me.
First one: polar ice caps, but made of chicken.
What?
Okay, hear me out on this though.
What?
Have you ever tried to thaw chicken?
Yeah.
Like, think about what is required. Think about what goes into thawing just a basic piece of chicken breast from the freezer. Think about the investment that is required to accomplish that.
Like the time effort,
The energy that you have to put into it. You got to microwave that stuff. You can try leaving it out. You put it in a fridge, it's frozen for 3 days. You put it on the counter, it'll thaw in like a day and a half, maybe.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So you're thinking we make the... Go ahead, explain your... Because I'm still...
No, you got it. You're tracking with me here, I think.
I think
we
so.
We make even... Let's shoot conservative here and say like 20% of those ice caps are now made out of chicken. Those bad dogs they're not going to melt.
Did you just solve the global warming crisis? I think you just did.
I think I did.
Honestly think you just did. You might be onto something. I mean, I think it's going to be wildly expensive, but what is money? They print more every day, really, if you think about it. So
We just gave out $4.6 trillion in a stimulus package.
we could give it to the chicken farmers.
Give that to Tyson and let's see what happens.
We need all of your chickens. Everybody just load them up on a boat. We're going to crash the boat into the Arctic and just leave it. We will be cold for the next thousands of years. The ice caps are going to stink really bad.
They might, but they'll be frozen enough that it won't smell too bad.
But nobody lives there too. So
also a good point. So I think that solved a major global issue, which is good. Second, I've got soft pretzels in a bag instead of like the normal crunchy kind. I'm talking like soft, chewy pretzels in a miniature.
okay.
The consistency that they make those Chips Ahoy that are soft cookies.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Why can't we do that for soft pretzels in a bag?
True. I never thought of that because I love soft pretzels, but I was thinking like, a giant one, like in a bag that you would buy, but the mini ones, now we're getting onto something. So if you are a pretzel CEO, you need to solve this for us because I think that's a valid point. I would spend $3.5 trillion or whatever we just stimulus onto that. So if you can figure out how to sell small soft pretzels, I love soft pretzels.
Now
So
imagine it too. You've got the mini versions. You put like that powdered Ritz cheese that they put in the little Ritz cracker sandwiches. You throw a couple of them bad dogs together, slap it in an Oreo package. You're good to go, man.
So is this like the redneck trail mix is what you're getting at?
That's exactly what it is.
Hey, I got some trail mix. It's got nuts and raisins and almonds and all this stuff. I got a hybrid Oreo that tastes like soft pretzel. Oh, pass them over.
Why did I bring these raisins?
Throw these at the birds. We're keeping this. This is going to keep us alive for the next week. That's a quarantine food. We can call them quarantinis. That's it.
Ooh, they are tiny.
See? You can eat them all by yourself.
Quarantinis.
Quarantinis. There you go. I like it.
Here's another $1 million idea for you. Milk bones and or dentist sticks for babies.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't seen that, but I've thought about this too. When they're like chewing on stuff.
Yes. I'm talking like a health-based product that is not meant to replace brushing of teeth,
right?
But is intended to supplement it, much like you would a dog, because brushing the teeth of an infant is an adventure.
Dude.
I care for my hands enough that I'd like to keep all of my digits intact.
Dude.
And it's not possible.
For reals. That is, we can get into the daddy-daughter. Is this our segue? Is this a segue version into daddy-daughter thing?
Just getting, I've got so many $1 million ideas here.
Okay, because I want to talk about brushing of teeth of daughters, because Chelsea and I are incredibly blessed. Sadie has been one of, if got to be the best baby that's ever been born. Sleeves, she'll eat everything, but my God, brushing her teeth is horrible. I mean, horrible. Like, she cries in pain. Like, it is, she'll do everything she can to avoid brushing her teeth. Yep. But then once she wants to grab the toothbrush and share. And it's like, we don't, no,
we're good.
We don't need to share toothbrushes. Some things in the family don't need to be shared. And the toothbrush is one.
So now imagine that you could just pop open a package of baby sticks.
And just give her one.
Give her one, let her go to town on it, put it between her little paws like your dogs might, and just clean those bad dogs.
Her paws. Just, she'd probably chew it all day, dude.
Yes.
She'd have super white teeth.
Now, there's a few logistical issues you'd have to get by. One is obviously like the obvious issue of choking.
Well,
I haven't figured out that. I haven't crossed that hurdle yet.
What if they're dissolvable?
Do you think they'd be effective teeth cleaners at that point?
I mean, I think if you're just trying to, it's got to be better than nothing, right? Like, they could be chewing, like the chewables that they chew on now, they're teethers now, they don't clean anything, so it's got to be better than nothing. You just take one of those teethers and we just dip it in fluorine. That's it.
Get Shark Tank on the phone.
Shark Tank.
Get Mark Cuban on the line.
Lori Grenier, call us. You need to sponsor us.
This is $1 billion. Parents would buy it even if it didn't work, because they'd be like, I hate brushing my kids' teeth.
Yeah, just give them this stick.
Give them a baby stick. We're good.
It's fine. Brought to you by Brody Mo In-Law Show. Unless you're going to sue us, then it's by another podcast.
All right. I think I got a little off the rails on these last couple here, so I'll just go through them.
Oh, so this is where it gets off the rails. Not the chickens in the
Arctic.
The
other ones were good, man. Okay. These are my King Lear. The next one I just wrote, I crossed off a bunch of stuff and then wrote The Force But Real. So I'm not sure where I was going with that. Number 5 was just buying a Nintendo Switch, which if you, I don't know why you would have been paying attention to this particular market. Nintendo Switches are harder to find than toilet paper and Clorox wipes right now.
I read that. I read like Nintendo and a bunch of video game stuff is just back ordered beyond belief. That and home workout equipment. Like, you can't get it anymore. People are ordering that left and right. It's like very drastic. Like, I want to buy something to where I can sit and watch TV for hours on end, and I need something that's going to make me move.
The Venn diagram of those two things doesn't intersect at all.
It's
just a road in between it.
Just the Force, but real. Okay.
And then the last one, which ties in with that, is a Star Wars sequel trilogy, only good movies.
No. Now we've officially crossed over into doesn't happen land. You're wrong. That doesn't work.
I know.
Should we talk about you and I have talked about this a little bit. So are we into the movie critique section of the Brody Mo In-Law Show?
I think we're there.
Because
we just passed over $3 billion ideas in lieu of talking about Star Wars again, so we might as well.
We're both pretty big Star Wars fans, I think, and I mean, I like Star Wars. I don't know it as well as probably I should. Like, I just watch it and I like it and it's great. But we have got to talk about the massive plane, the massive wreck that was Rise of Skywalker. I feel like it hasn't been brought up enough in this podcast, and it doesn't deserve it deserves to be talked about how terrible it was. So you have some opinions on this one as well. We have now where people will literally watch anything, like just there's nothing else to do. And we still don't have it on Disney, and they still won't show it.
It's true. They won't release it in the midst of a global pandemic when people are locked in their house and have nothing to do but watch TV. They're thinking, we better keep this one in the vault, let it cook a little more.
Yeah, that one's not quite done yet. It's not there. Yeah, we prematurely released it, and it flopped, and so we're not going to prematurely release it. Here's a movie about a bunch of blue people that go onward. Let's release that one early.
That was a good movie. Did you watch Onward?
I haven't seen it yet because I haven't watched it yet, but I've heard it's really good. So
you got to embrace your inner nerd a little bit for Onward.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know if that is anywhere in your realm whatsoever. I've got a couple of friends who are really into it and have invited me to play with them a few times. Mm-hmm. So I have like context for what the movie was about. But even without it, it's just like it's just a good two brothers story.
Oh, okay. I'll have to check it out. Yeah, we haven't gotten to that point yet. I was rewatching Django Unchained, but like when you're a parent, and when you're a parent of a toddler, you obviously cannot watch anything that Quentin Tarantino makes. So, and Chelsea doesn't do gory or anything like that of any kind. So I watch it like during my lunch breaks, like 30 minutes at a time, which if you watch a Quentin Tarantino movie takes you 4.5 years to finish at 30 minutes at a time. So I've been watching Django in 30-minute sections for the past week.
We're way off the rails now though, but did you watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Yes, I did. And
that was a good movie.
It was so good, but I was so disappointed in the end, which I know sounds bad. Like the very, 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 very like last 30 seconds, not to spoil the movie, but if you haven't seen it by now, what are you doing? Like, you're in quarantine, rent it. I don't know. Like, the whole fight scene at the end and Leo DiCaprio and the shooting and all, like, that's all great and that's all fine. And I like that. That's very Quentin Tarantino. Like, everybody dies and it's very massive and glory. But like at the end, they like go into Sharon Tate's house. And I was like, but she dies. Like, that's the whole helter skelter, like, Manson thing, right? And they just were like, oh, and we're done. I was like, of all the things that Quentin Tarantino does, that felt like it was for him to direct. And it just
the actual Sharon Tate murders part.
Yeah, like that's something that's so gory and twisted that he could have done something with that, and he's just like, no. Like, I'm done. Which, if after you make a 3.5 hour long movie, you're I guess you're just tired. I'm done.
I think this was my interpretation of this, and I could be well off base here, but my thought was that he got his gore part of it out in that last 20-minute scene.
Yeah.
And his hope was to take this guy that's become this cult figure, like the Manson clan has become this image of fear and intimidation, and they were the ones who came in and disrupted Hollywood, and just make him into like a laughing stock. Like, it was a Looney Tunes style fight scene where they were just literally flame throwing people. So he got to rewrite that history of Sharon Tate being brutally murdered and instead turn that on the guy who did it and be like, look at you, you're nothing, you're a clown, and I'm going to determine how this goes from here on out. In my ideal world, Sharon Tate lives and you are the fool who gets destroyed.
See, I'm not a good movie critic. You're so much smarter in thinking that way. I'm just like, I think about history. Like, it's a horrible, horrible, horrible thing that this guy did to, Sharon Tate and her baby, and just Manson's one of the worst human beings in the world. And I'm like, but history, like, why? And so maybe thinking about it that way, I think maybe Quentin Tarantino's the good guy. Wait,
what? That's not a world I want to live in. That's a bad place to be.
I don't know. He's going to serve us papers. Like, you guys have to cease and desist talking about me.
I think he's probably happy when anybody talks about him.
Oh, maybe that. He's like, please more.
I just need publicity, guys.
Here's $5. First sponsor, Quentin Tarantino. We started a sports podcast when there's no sports.
We're
freaking
just
geniuses.
businessmen.
You start talking about, you got dads and daughters, and that's great. And then you talk about Arizona sports, which everybody hates. So
Everybody, including us.
And I mean, we both got Arizona hats on. I've got a U of A, you're NAU, but you're wearing a Nebraska shirt. So
I am wearing my Nebraska shirt today.
Just repping Nebraska.
I've got a friend of the podcast. Hopefully, I don't know. I wouldn't subject anyone to listening to this, whatever this is. My buddy Cole is from Nebraska. Went to the University of Nebraska and is the world's greatest sports fan. And
that's true.
I was really hoping that I could bandwagon on some other team that had like a steeped historic tradition, like a football program that had some real power, and at least then I'd be able to, during a season, like enjoy winning with another team. Since I got on the Nebraska bandwagon, the first game I ever watched with Cole was Wisconsin-Nebraska in the Big Ten Championship when Taylor Martinez was the quarterback and Kenny Bell was the receiver who laid that guy out in that block that everybody still gifts.
Yes.
Nebraska lost by like 800 points. And they haven't done anything since. They've had losing seasons, 3 different coaches. As soon as I got into it, man, that was when it tanked.
Downhill. Oh, I remember that. Oh,
I am the curse.
Oh, no. I don't even... I'm really trying... I usually have your side, but you might be. You might be it.
I am. I think I am. So to all my Nebraska fan listeners, I am deeply apologetic, but I'm too into it now to stop. You can't just pull away from it.
I have more respect for people that stick by their team, than bandwagon, that go back and forth, and you got to stick by your team. They're your team. And you have a good enough reason, a good enough story, to be a Nebraska fan, not just like, I wanted to pick a team. I thought about that. Like if I go back and go to grad school, which I did, to a non-athletic school. I went to NAU. I was thinking that like, I need to go to like Duke because at least I know they're going to win basketball every year, or I need to go to this school. And then I went to NAU and I don't even think they have sports anymore.
No, nobody in Flagstaff attends sporting events. Speaking of nobody going to sporting events, Brody, we had a real live actual sports thing.
We did
happen. In the past week and a half, something real with sports occurred. No one was there to see it, but it happened.
I know. I witnessed it.
Yeah.
The first one I've ever watched
from a distance.
In a while.
That was the first NFL draft you've ever watched?
No, but it's the first one I've watched in a while. Like for an extended period. By the way, listeners, we're talking about the NFL draft.
NFL draft.
Like I usually will watch like the first maybe the first round, or at least half of the first round, to see, how some of those guys, get drafted, and that's exciting to me. And then I kind of lose interest in the middle rounds, which I think is probably most people in regular years. But I actually watched like quite a bit of it. So
yeah, I inhaled this thing. There's starved. Nothing else going on.
We're starved for sports. So yeah, it was good. So what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are this: is we finally get some semblance of like sporting normalcy back. And of course, the only thing that happens to us as Arizona sports fans, and this is what we commiserate about on this podcast, is that the Arizona Wildcats football program is the only Pac-12 program to not have somebody drafted.
Dude, and I'm wearing a U of A hat right now.
We finally get like this ray of hope in the bleak void of no sports, and it's like undercut by the constant mediocrity of this program.
That was bad. That's really bad, man. I mean, because those guys, U of A had some talent that could have gone somewhere. I feel like you got Khalil Tate that could have gone somewhere. Certainly had he's got all kinds of talent. JJ Taylor, who I think is wildly underrated, who could have really, done something. I don't know where it went wrong, or if scouts weren't looking at him, or I don't know what happened. If they were, I know Khalil Tate was underutilized the last 2 years. That's not, that's not debatable. He really was. So what went wrong? Why weren't those guys drafted? Specifically, I pick on those two because I just feel like they had so much talent. I know that they signed with a couple of teams, but they didn't get drafted, and I think that's kind of a big black mark on the program.
Yes, it is.
How can you be a Power 5 conference, or and you're not putting out at least one person to get drafted? That's rough. It's really a rough thing. It's a really rough thing to be a part of. You've got
guys from Lenoir-Rhyne. Lenoir-Rhyne are getting drafted in the second round. Kyle Duggar goes to New England, round 2, pick 37, from Lenoir-Rhyne. He's the 8th guy to get drafted from Division II football. And Arizona can't put one guy in the draft. It's bad, man.
And University of Kansas had somebody got drafted too. We were talking about that. And I mean, University of Kansas, your guys' football program's struggling awfully hard too. In previous years, I think that they're looking a little bit more up now. They got Les Miles now, and they got some. They're going to be able to, I think, turn around eventually, but not during this draft class. I think to have them get drafted and U of A just putting up goose eggs, that's rough, dude. I mean, that's real. We have to really take a second and look at ourselves, U of A, to where you can't put out at least one person to get picked.
Right.
And you had a guy that was on the cover of Sports Illustrated 2 years ago. It was his Heisman to lose.
Give him the Heisman. Give him the title of that article.
And he didn't even get drafted.
He wasn't even your starting quarterback towards the end of the year. I guess bad. Technically he was, but he's splitting reps with a freshman.
That's not a good place to be.
Just poor utilization.
We can keep dogging on that, but to go talk about good, but oh my gosh, did LSU clean house? Holy moly. I don't particularly care for LSU, but I got to give credit where credit is due. Holy cow. I mean, they had 14 guys drafted.
That sounds right. I would bet it was more than that, but yeah, that sounds right. In what universe are you a high school student and you don't want to go play for an SEC school?
Hard to argue. Hard to argue that. Why not? Like it seems like you have Clemson and then SEC.
Ohio State, maybe
Ohio State.
You want to play at Ohio State,
or you're from Michigan, and so you got to go blue, But other than that, why? I mean, that's where U of A is in a hole. Come here and come play with us. We've Tucson's got beautiful weather, and you can sell all the points, and then LSU come in and be like, oh, we're gonna get you drafted, and you're gonna go make millions.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna go there. I can deal with the Bayou be down in Louisiana for a couple of years and deal with the humidity. Oh, okay, yeah, but I'm gonna be a millionaire. I mean, why would you not? You're right. You're absolutely right. So go ahead. What were your thoughts?
You brought up what I think is an interesting comparison to Arizona football when you say Kansas had a guy drafted. What other college football programs do you put in the same echelon as Arizona? And I think this exercise becomes telling because it shows you where you think Arizona can compete. Because I think Kansas is one of the teams I would put in as a football program that is comparable to who Arizona is. Like every now and then they show up with a team that makes some noise. They'll have a top 25, top 20 team for no reason, and then they just go right back into the tank.
Man, that's
history of a good college football program, a basketball school at heart. That, to me, Kansas or maybe even Duke. I think Duke is a better football program, honestly.
I mean, Duke, you can even say, North Carolina, but they've I think made more noise in the football arena than U of A in recent years. But you could say that. The most comparable to U of A. Just on a strict football basis? Is that what you're asking? Or just as a university?
Football programs in specific.
What about Hawaii? I mean, Hawaii has played us close the past few years.
How about this? Let's pick one team from each of the Power 5 conferences, and we have to pick a Pac-12 team that's the most comparable to Arizona. Okay, here's your ACC choices: Boston College, Clemson, Duke, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Louisville, Miami, North Carolina State, Pitt, Syracuse, Virginia, Virginia Tech, Wake Forest, Notre Dame. Virginia might be in there.
I was going to say Virginia or North Carolina State. That one running out to me. I think that Arizona is better than North Carolina State, but I guess if we had to... Virginia is an interesting one. That might... Maybe Virginia. I was leaning towards North Carolina State at first when you first read off the list.
I'll go with that. I'm going to go there too. I'm fine. Let's do North Carolina State from there. That's a good choice.
Because
really, the ACC is the most comparable.
Yeah.
That has the most teams that would be comparable.
I think that you're right. To the whole Pac-12.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. I think that's a pretty fair ACC in football. I think ACC on a more consistent basis is better basketball-wise.
Mm-hmm.
From top to bottom on consistency. There are years in which I know we're talking about football, but in basketball that the Pac-12 could have 8 teams in the tournament. It's not unreal. And then you have teams that are one maybe scrapes in.
Yep. Big Ten. Big Ten is Illinois, Indiana, both good choices for this.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa, Maryland, Michigan State, Minnesota, Nebraska, Northwestern, Ohio State, Penn State, Purdue, Rutgers, and Wisconsin. Choices in here. Illinois, Indiana, Maryland, Purdue all stand out to me.
I'm going to go with Purdue because they're the team that seems like every single year gets a big win, a huge win against some sort of top 5 school that they're not supposed to beat, yet somehow they win either by blowout or a field goal or something like that's not supposed to happen. And that seems very U of A to me.
U of A.
We beat, some top 5 school, and then you lose to ITT Tech.
Yeah.
That seems what Purdue seems to do every year. But even if you want to make the basketball argument, they've got a pretty good basketball program too that's very comparable, I think, to U of A too.
We're seeing a theme here. You're either a basketball school or a football school. You can't
exactly.
You just can't have both good things unless you're Ohio State or Wisconsin. Apparently.
Well, yeah, Wisconsin.
I hate Wisconsin. We're not going to talk about Wisconsin. That's the last time we mention that program or that whole state.
The whole state. I'm not eating cheese anymore.
Okay, Purdue. Purdue is where it's at with that.
I think Purdue.
We're building a new conference here that Arizona can compete in.
Oh, is that it? Oh, okay.
That's what we're after here. Big 12 is Baylor, Iowa State, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech, West Virginia. I think we already got Kansas out of this one, yeah?
That's the only one.
I think that's
too stacked. There's no way. If we put any of those other teams in a new conference, they'll just... All of those teams are better than those teams we've listed, except for, I would say, Kansas probably needs to stay. You're right. Moving on.
Okay, who else are we taking with us from the Pac-12?
Arizona. So Arizona's going. So you're going to pick another team.
Arizona's going to this new conference, but we've got to take another team from here. The one that best mirrors who Arizona is as a football program, which I think you also have to think historicity here too. Where are they from? What's their lineage? What's their their historical prowess in football. And I think the only other option, there's really 2. You've got ASU, that's the only other team, but they've made a Rose Bowl and make some noise, so that's not a great choice.
Right.
Or Oregon State.
That's where I was going to say.
Oregon State.
That's what I was going to say. I know, but it's Oregon State. Because in this new conference, no matter what we do, U of A is going to play ASU every year. That is non-negotiable. So we can keep that rivalry alive because I think that the state of Arizona will burn to a crisp if we take that game away. But It has to be. But U of A, it's hard because U of A has made so much noise. They've been highly ranked. They've put out draft picks. They've had all these things. But they have the ever-hanging no Rose Bowl that will just forever sit on top of them until they actually go to one. That you can't. How do you compare? Who else do you bring? It's got to be Oregon State, the only one that's close enough.
I think so too. Okay, that just leaves the SEC. Bama, Arkansas, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Missouri, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Vanderbilt.
I guess
Kentucky or Vandy, really.
That's the only options. I'm going to go with Kentucky. Still a good program. Like it checks all the boxes. I think I just, kind of said they have some draft picks. They've made some noise. They've won some games. They've been ranked, but consistently, they're basketball school. So football is secondary because none of those other teams are like all of those other teams could be ranked any given week.
Right.
I mean.
Okay, we've got ourselves a nice little 6-team conference here. Are you ready for some real disappointment?
Are
you ready to feel terrible about how we think about this program?
I already do.
North Carolina State, Purdue, Kansas, Oregon State, Kentucky, and Arizona, and Hawaii.
And Hawaii. We got to have Hawaii in there. Oh, man.
What a conference. The Conference of Champions.
The conference of, will anybody show us on TV? Please, we will pay you to show us on TV.
Yeah, what do we call this? 1, 2, 3. We got 6 teams in here.
The sub 6?
The sub 6.
The mediocre 6. Sub 6. Sub 6 is probably the best.
The sub 6. I'll subscribe to that TV network.
Yeah, I'd watch them.
You get some good basketball games out of this, though.
You could get some killer basketball games out of that where Arizona has to play Kentucky twice.
Purdue twice. North Carolina State twice. Kansas twice. That's good. That's a good conference.
That's good ball. That's good ball right there.
Sports.
You just got to fast forward to basketball season. Like pretend football season doesn't exist.
Which is exactly what we do now, so really no different.
Exactly. University of Arizona president, as well as some other presidents of some other universities, talked about how they don't think that there is going to be a college football season in the fall. So my question to you, are you relieved that we don't have to watch college football this fall? If they're right.
Is it telling that, of course, President Robbins is one of the forefront leaders of this campaign to end football?
Please, no.
What was his exact quote here? Let's see. My sense right now, I just don't see that happening. I'm really concerned about whether we're going to be playing football in the fall. Yeah, I mean, take COVID out of that, and that statement is still true, Robbins. I don't know what you're putting on the field, but it's not football.
Something. That brings in a ton of money. It's the big money maker. But your lower echelon teams probably aren't as concerned, and they're going to say that it's going to be public health, and we're not going to have these teams. But could you possibly imagine what would happen in the state of Alabama if Bama canceled football in the fall? There's no way. Louisiana with LSU, or Ohio with Ohio State, Michigan, like all of these big schools, that whole state would cease to exist.
Yep.
U of A fans would be like, oh, that's all right.
That makes sense.
Okay, we'll just, come back 2021. It's our year. That's the Arizona motto. Next year.
All 60 season ticket holders are going to be devastated.
Dude, they'll lose tens of dollars.
Literally tens of dollars. I think he's right. I don't think what he's saying is wrong.
I
Most
agree.
likely it's going to be delayed. It's just par for the course that our guy is the one leading the charge for it.
Right. Exactly. And I think it's valid, and I don't think he's wrong. I think they're going to have a season. They're going to have a season. I don't think it's going to start on time because they should have started spring ball now. No schools have started that. So you're already talking, you're a month behind at least, to where you can have guys in shape to where the game is safe just as a game beyond COVID. The guys that you're putting on the field are in shape enough to play this violent game.
That's a good point.
That's the other thing. Like for the listeners out there, and Mo, you just certainly know I'm a huge hockey fan. I love the sport of ice hockey. And I want hockey to start. Like, just start it tomorrow. Like, it's fine. They're professional athletes. But the reality is that they haven't seen the ice in 6 weeks. You can't expect somebody to go out and play at that high of level tomorrow. It's not going to happen. You have to give them. NHL is saying at least 3 weeks, and I think the NBA has said the same thing. It's probably going to be a very similar timeline for NCAA football. That you have to give these guys at least 3 weeks to get in the weight room, to get their conditioning back to where they're not going to hurt themselves. Because I think mentally, once you get on the field, once you get on the ice, once you get on the court, mentally, you're ready to go. You're amped up. It's the game. Let's go. You put your physical ailments aside and you go play ball. Well, if you're not physically ready, you are going to hurt yourself really badly, and you're going to hurt somebody else. So I think that college football, to get back onto that, is going to be delayed. I don't know if they're going to cancel the whole season, but it will certainly not start on time.
Do you think there's a possibility they cancel the whole season?
I just don't think that the money's going to allow it. I don't see it happening.
Especially given that they're having the kids come back to campus,
especially because
in the fall. It seems that there's like a disconnect there between, we want students to be on campus so we get those tuition dollars, but we're not going to play football. Like, if you're doing this for the revenue, do it for the revenue.
Right.
Go all in.
Right. Exactly. I just don't see how I can't picture a fall without football. It would be tough as a fan, but from a business aspect, and we all know that health is the number one thing we're concerned about right now. That's why we're all in quarantine. That's why we're all social distancing and washing our hands. And we need to obviously be continuing that. But from a business standpoint, they have to put something on the field, whether that's without fans. I know some sports have talked about without having fans, to where they can get TV and streaming revenues. But I think that there's going to have to be something on the field at some point. I'm not saying you rush it back and you have kids coming and playing spring ball right now. Now is not the time, but at some point you're going to have to put, guys on the field. That's where it's going to boil down to.
I agree.
Hopefully sooner rather than later, but we'll once we got to get this pandemic thing figured out first. That's priority number one.
Brody, I'm drinking out of my mug here that's got a picture of my daughter. For the listeners, I'm holding this mug up to my. We do this over Zoom, over the internet, because we don't live in the same city, and also there's a global pandemic. Not sure if you've heard, but there is.
By the way,
going around. Drinking some whiskey out of the Posey mug tonight, and this photo that's on here is of her when she's probably two, maybe 3 months old. Just a wee little pup here.
So how long ago was that from today? Just so that everybody, the listeners, know.
Let's see. Today is April 29th. She's 13 months. A few days ago, so just over a year.
So this is like
probably 10 months ago.
10 months ago. Okay.
And I remember at the time thinking this was just the cutest, most beautiful thing I had ever seen. And then as I look at the photo now, I'm kind of like, I can be objective, right, about my daughter here. There were times when she looked a little weird.
There's so first of all, Posey is adorable. So I don't know what you're concerned about, but I know where you're coming from because I am also a dad of a daughter. And objectively, everybody should at least think your child is adorable. Okay, if you don't, you have other problems that we could talk about. But you look back and you're right. You're like, I have a picture of my child, Sadie, and like her head is not a head shape. It's like a cone head, but it's shaped not a symmetrical cone. It's a cone off to the side, like a jester's hat. And
it's cone adjacent.
You think like, oh, she's so adorable. And then, but she's not like in that picture. I don't know if it's the way the picture is. Everybody who's listening to this podcast knows exactly what we're talking about. When you see, there are just some ugly babies out there. Let's just be honest. It's out there.
Yes,
it happens.
Can be objective.
Okay. At times, they're ugly babies. Okay, we all have an ugly stage that we go through at some point. I'm including myself in it. That we're just like, we have a cone ahead that looks like Sadie does. Sadie's so freaking cute now. Like, she's got ponytails and it's adorable. But you look back, you're right. Then you're like, oh, I remember thinking, I met somebody and kind of an acquaintance, and you're like, oh, you meet their baby and you're like, oh, they're so adorable and it's so cute. And then you walk away and you're like, oh, that's a funky looking baby. And then you look back at your own and you're like, oh, my baby's that. Oh no. Oh, funky looking.
So is it possible to be objective at any given stage then? Because I look at Posey right now and I know that she's cute. Am I going to look back in 3 years and realize that she was not cute right now? Is my objectivity skewed by the fact that she is my daughter and I'm so wildly enthralled and in love with her that she could do no wrong?
I think that that's a natural thing for a dad of a daughter to be. I honestly think that that's every stage, because I remember holding Sadie when she was that age, when she had the cone looking head thing, thinking that she was the most beautiful thing that's ever graced the earth. And then you look back and you're like, well, you're a little funky looking, but that's all right. You know, you were a baby. And now I look at her and I'm like, she's so cute. She talks now. She has just big old pigtails in and bouncing around, and like, it's so adorable. But there are times, I think there's just times in the day when you're not being cute, and it has something to do maybe with your personality. Like when you ask for a banana and then I give you a banana and then you scream on the floor for 20 minutes, you're not exactly being very cute in that time. Objectively, you're not being very cute. So I think it's appropriate and a healthy thing to just be, you're just objective. And then you look back and you're like, man, you were not being cute in this picture during this time.
I will make you this commitment as a fellow dad to a daughter, is I will never tell you the truth about this. I will always just tell you that your daughter is cute.
Exactly. And us as dads, we get very protective of our children in that moment. Like, it's okay for us to make fun of our kids, but don't let somebody else. Don't ever dare. You know what I mean? Like, that's a very healthy thing for a dad to be. Like, my dad made fun of, maybe because we were boys, like my dad made fun of us and teased, us and in a very, very loving way, in a fun way. He also told us how much he loved us, and, it was a healthy relationship. I still have a healthy relationship with my dad, but like, he wasn't about to let anybody else make fun of us. You know what I mean? Nope. And I think that is much more exasperated as a dad of a daughter. Being a dad of a daughter, it's like, I don't mind making fun of her and roughhousing with her. And, I call her Stinky all the time because she spent most of her life smelling kind of funky at some point. But I don't want anybody else making fun of her. Like, she's mine. I get that. That's my right as a dad. I get to make fun of her, not you.
Yep.
So it's a healthy balance.
I don't know your intentions when you're trying to make fun of my daughter. I know mine.
I know what's in my heart. Yeah.
All about jovial, lighthearted, nicknamey type of making fun. Like, exactly. It's all meant in love.
Exactly.
But you take her name out your mouth.
Yeah. You take her name out of your mouth, or I'm going to take it out of your mouth, and it's going to be 5 fists right now. So, it's just that ingrained, and I don't know if that's the same for boys. If it's just, oh, you're a dirty boy, and you just, I don't know if that's the same because I don't have any boys, but I feel like with a daughter, it's like you said, it's coming from our heart. We know that you are the most important thing in our life. There will never be anything that changes that. But I get the right to make fun of you and make dad jokes and embarrass you because you embarrassed me a ton. That's my right.
Speaking of dad jokes, you got a new one this week? I haven't done my research. I haven't been in the laboratory crafting up the dad jokes.
God, man, you got to work on the dad jokes, man.
I'm lazy, man.
It's how it's again goes back to our right as a dad that we get to make fun of them because they're gonna embarrass us a lot.
You're right. I need to be better.
Mine this week. This one's a bad one. I Googled it. So I haven't tried it out in public. So this is the first one in public and I don't want to mess it up. What did the drummer call his 2 daughters?
What did the drummer call his 2 daughters?
Anna 1, Anna 2.
Okay. Let's back up for a second here. Let's workshop this joke a little bit. Cause there's some potential, right? But it's fundamentally broken.
I don't know. I read it on Google. This is my first time going out with it.
Right off the bat, right, jumping out at me here is, why is it a drummer? Like, wouldn't you think this would be the conductor? What is a musical conductor? Because they're the ones saying and a 1 and a 2. A drummer has never said those words in his life.
Well, this one did. Okay, he's the first. That's the only one that I have. That's it. You can take it.
Is it one word? Is it Anna 1?
Anna 1.
Anna 2?
That's a good way to remember your kids' names too, by the way. So maybe George Foreman is onto something because he has like 8 kids. They're all named George.
Really?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, George Foreman. He's got like 8 sons, and they're all named George.
Guy's smart.
I mean, he's smart or a psychopath. I don't know. It's a fine line. So that's my dad joke of the week. Sadie's into Little Baby Bum. Have you seen this on Netflix?
You were telling me about this, but I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, it's rough, man. It's nursery rhymes, but they have animation with it. And they sing like the same nursery rhyme like 6 times an episode. So I've heard Wheels on the Bus I've heard it 1,000,000 times now because they play it 6 times an episode and they like change a little bit to each one. And then they play like, Mary Had a Little Lamb, like all these different nursery rhymes. And they're really simple ones that just have animation with it. But she watches that for hours. That's been the new thing to watch. We don't watch a whole lot of Frozen. She's not really into that as much. Cars is kind of almost a thing of the past. We did start watching Lion King again. I thought we got
back in the rotation.
That's back in the rotation. Yeah. We had a nice break. From Lion King. It was a good like 6-month run of no Lion King, and now it's back to Lion King again.
Just imagine how much better it's going to be when you know that while she's watching these movies, that she's also cleaning her teeth on a baby stick.
I know, right?
You're killing some 2 birds with 1 stone right there. You're keeping her occupied. You're helping her oral hygiene. You're making yourself some money.
I would probably spend a dangerous amount on something like that. There's no way it would pass the FDA test, right?
I have legitimately Googled this to try to find if there's something like this on the market already. I don't see anything.
It's there.
I thought about it.
I thought about it. I'm in.
Candles by Jan.
But I do have a Frozen 2 victory story, and it's not about the film. Okay, it's Frozen/Frozen 2. So if listeners and Mo, you'll remember a few podcast episodes back, we talked about an issue that was gravely concerning to me, and it was the fact that every time my daughter would look at Will Smith in Hitch, she thought he was Dada. She would say that over and over again, Dada, Dada, which I am taking as a compliment because I've officially decided that's a compliment because he's a very attractive looking man. So I can
come to terms with it. Good.
I've come to terms with that.
Good.
But now, every time she sees Kristoff in Frozen, Dada. Every single time. Which is also okay because he's a good guy.
Yeah.
In the film. So I'm okay with that. Like she has yogurt, like Go-Gurt things, and that have Kristoff on it. She'll be like, Dada, Dada. It's not to me, just Dada. Like she'll point to it, Dada. And then when he comes up in the film, it's Dada. So
You're getting a lot closer. I mean, we're starting to curve towards the norm here.
I look a lot more like Kristoff than Will Smith. If none of the listeners have met me, I'm much closer to Kristoff than I am to Will Smith. Both attractive men. I wouldn't mind looking like either one, but this is the hand God dealt me, so I look like Kristoff, and I'm going to embrace it.
Good things about this is, one, she's getting closer. She's getting closer to reality.
Yeah.
Two, like you said, Kristoff is a good guy and not like a complete. I remember Will Smith being kind of neurotic in the movie Hitch.
Maybe.
Like he was ostensibly the guy who was supposed to help Kevin James get a date, and he himself was struggling to do that very task in sometimes wacky ways.
That's true.
Like, I think he ate shellfish at one point and was allergic to shellfish. Anyway, I don't know why I know so much about the movie Hitch.
It's a good movie. It really is. It really is a good movie.
But also, Kristoff's got like a set of pipes too. Like, I mean, you're getting into better form here.
I don't have a set of pipes. I won't be singing on the intro track anytime soon. But he's much more relatable, and I am much more happy that she thinks he's Dada than Will Smith, because I was now looking back, it's hindsight's 2020. I'm like, that was a good thing. At the time, I was getting a little concerned. Like, is Will Smith hanging around my house? Like, is she seeing him a lot? Like, what am I don't know. I was just getting a little, you just get paranoia when your daughter thinks Will Smith's her dad. All right. You just get a little paranoia. That's all I'm saying. Will Smith, you can sponsor our podcast too, if you want to. You can come on if you want. I
would love to have he and Quentin Tarantino can come on the program.
The CEO of Rocketbook, whoever you are.
Rocketbook.
Whoever voices Kristoff.
I couldn't tell you if you paid me $100,000 who voices Kristoff.
I don't. But you can come on.
We clearly care about you deeply.
You're a big part of our life, whoever you are. You really are.
You really have made a difference.
You have given me hours and hours of free time. Because Sadie stands 6 inches from the TV and watches you sing. So I do owe you a dinner.
For that, we thank you.
All right. Did we cover everything? We have it all?
I think we hit just about everything. What did we talk about? We talked about the draft, billion-dollar ideas that we just continue to ignore as though they're not legitimate.
We have successfully brought the United States of America out of recession single-handedly. We are economists now.
I have ended global warming.
We ended global warming, yeah. You did. I didn't end global warming, so I'm going to give you the credit for that one.
Okay, thank you for that. Brody, we need a number to auction from this week. What is appropriate?
So I think what we're going to auction to, we're going to put a spin on it, listeners.
Okay.
We are going to auction off to the number of draft picks the University of Arizona had in the 2020 NFL draft, which was 0. And I know what you're thinking. How in the world are you going to auction to 0? We're going to start off at the number of draft picks that have been drafted from the University of Arizona since Mo has been alive since 1985, which is 29. So I'm going to count backwards from 29 to what we currently have today. Here we go. And 29, here 25, here 20, 20, and 20, here $15, here 15 now, 10, 10, 10, 5, $0, here $0, $0, 10 I have, here $0. Sold it. $0, $0. That's the first thing I've ever sold at $0.
That is both incredible and discouraging. Thank you, Arizona, for not putting any draft picks again in this year's draft. Everybody, thanks for listening. If you want to get in touch with us, you can at our Twitter handle @InlawsShow, or you can email us at inlawshow@gmail.com. We'll be back next week with another one. Till then, thanks.
Thanks, guys.